I wanted to start off by providing just a very short video that provides an introduction to Mind Medicine Australia. So we'll just show that video now. Thank you.
Did you know that over 45% of Australians will experience mental illness in their lifetime? That's nearly half of us.
I can't sleep. Everything feels flat and grey. I feel ashamed.
Mental ill health devastates lives and families and costs Australians around $60 billion a year. Research and treatment expenses continue to rise, yet rates of mental illness indicate that we're losing the battle. New approaches are urgently needed to address this immense suffering and cost. Psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy is currently being trialled worldwide and has demonstrated remarkable promise in treating depression, anxiety, addiction, and post-traumatic stress disorder, with new trials underway for treatment of dementia and anorexia. The treatment combines a short program of psychotherapy with just a few medicinal doses of psilocybin or MDMA. In the 1950s and 60s, psychedelic treatments had a major impact in psychiatry, and many considered it the next big thing in mental health treatment. But for political reasons, the Nixon administration criminalised the use of psychedelics and effectively stopped all research. That research has finally begun again. With proper clinical support, psychedelic treatments are safe and frequently lead to remission after only a short program, and even where current treatments have failed. Here at Mind Medicine Australia, we believe everyone should have access to the best treatments for mental illness. Subject to forthcoming clinical trial results, we will seek to establish best practice in regulated psychedelic-assisted treatment. Mind Medicine Australia is wholly focused on the clinical application of psychedelic medicines. We're preparing for change by developing therapist training, ethical guidelines, a centre of excellence in psychedelic medicine, educational material and events, and supporting clinical research. We're a small organisation doing big things, and we need your support. Please share this video and visit our website to support us and get involved.
Thank you. So that's our animated video, and now we'll have our slides. So Alana, if you could pop the slides on, that would be fantastic. So we have a mental health epidemic, and a lot of people, a lot of experts predict that there's a tsunami of mental illness coming out of the current COVID pandemic. So these are the stats at a glance, and this was before COVID or the bushfires. So 1 in 5 Australian adults have a chronic mental illness. Sorry, if we could go back to that previous slide, thank you. 1 in 8 Australians are now on antidepressants, including 1 in 4 older Australians, and 1 in 2 of us will experience a mental illness in our lifetimes. Those numbers are expected to increase by at least 20% due to the current pandemic. So we move to the next slide now, thank you. And we do acknowledge the country, the traditional owners of the land on which all of us stand. Thank you, everyone. We are an Australian registered charity with DGR1 status, seeking to broaden the treatment paradigm available to medical practitioners and patients by establishing safe, accessible and effective psychedelic-assisted therapies in Australia for major mental illnesses. Our primary focus at the moment is on medicinal psilocybin and medicinal MDMA. And the goal is that these therapies become an integrated part of our mental health system. They have very high remission rates compared to other existing treatments, and our goal is to make them accessible and affordable to all Australians in need. At the moment, that's something like 6 million people before this crisis. Moving to the next slide. So unfortunately, current treatments remain inadequate. There's been no improvement in treatment outcomes over the past 50 years and no innovation in treatments. As many of you would know, in the case of depression, only 35% of sufferers experienced remission from either antidepressants or psychotherapy, and the side effects are really quite profound. Other people experience some response, but often relapse or plateau and then have to double their doses or try different antidepressants. In the case of post-traumatic stress disorder, which is on the increase, even less sufferers show some response and remission rates are even lower. So more of the same approach is not going to solve the problem. And the next slide, thank you. So as I mentioned before, medicinal psilocybin for depression and potentially OCD and addiction, and medicinal MDMA for PTSD and the treatment of addiction. These medicines are also now being trialled for a variety of other conditions, including alcohol addiction, eating disorders, Alzheimer's, I said obsessive compulsive disorder, but the list of potential treatments and conditions is quite vast. The remarkable thing about these medicines is that they only require 2 to 3 dose sessions in contrast to conventional treatments, and they are used in combination with psychotherapy. So the medicines are used with psychotherapeutic support, and they're considered extremely safe in a medically controlled environment and are non-addictive. Both medicines have been granted breakthrough therapy designation by the FDA in the US to fast-track the approval process, which means that they consider these medicines vastly improved on the current existing treatments. And the next slide, thank you. So we have 4 strategic pillars at Mind Medicine Australia. The first of those is awareness and knowledge building, education and events, a major international medical summit in November, which we invite you all to join us for. We have screenings of different and relevant films. We've got state and regional chapters commencing all over Australia, New Zealand, Asia, and so on. So if you want to join or start a chapter, please let us know. We're also looking at funding novel research. We're looking at starting a therapist professional development program starting in early 2021. So we've brought over a senior clinical psychologist from the UK who's worked with the psilocybin trials at Imperial College, and we'll be offering an introductory workshop to therapists and others interested in psychedelic therapies in November at our summit as well. We're also looking at setting up an Asia Pacific Centre of Excellence for advanced research and development, supply chains and agribusiness, economic modelling, education of allied health professionals and medical students. And then we're looking at the legal and ethical frameworks and how these medicines can be made available as soon as possible to the millions of people who are suffering. Our focus is wholly clinical. So if we go back to the main screen now with everyone on it, please, Ilan, that would be wonderful. And I will introduce Dr. Mark Cross, and let me just see where he is. Where are you, Mark?
I'm here.
I'm trying to find you on the program. Ilan, would you be able to pin Mark? Ilan? You can talk if you like, Ilan, and just because everyone.
No, sorry, I was saying that Mark is unmuted. If Mark says hello to us, he should pop up.
Hello, Rod.
There you are.
Hello, I'm over here on the top of my screen. I don't know where you are.
Okay, okay. So if everyone wants to pin Mark, that's probably a great idea. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Tanya.
So I'm just going to give a short intro to the wonderful Mark, and I'll just get your lovely intro because I want to do you justice. Here we go. Dr. Mark Cross is a psychiatrist with clinical experience of over 3 decades. He graduated as a doctor in Cape Town, and we welcome some of the people on this call from Cape Town. And all over the world, we have people from Quebec and New Zealand and all over Australia and all over the world, which is exciting. And specialised in the UK and has worked as a specialist in Sydney since 2005. He holds senior conjoint lecturer positions at the Universities of New South Wales and Western Sydney, special interest in sexuality issues, and in the workplace and improving the care and quality of life of people with lived experience and carers. In 2015, he received the Royal Australian New Zealand College of Psychiatrists New South Wales Branch Meritorious Award for his significant contribution to psychiatry. Mark is the author of Anxiety and co-author of Changing Minds, both published by ABC Books HarperCollins, and was the lead psychiatrist in the ABC TV series Changing Minds. He's a well-respected speaker on mental health issues, a Sane Australia board member, and a passionate advocate on the importance of preventative mental health, and he's on the advisory panel of Mind Medicine Australia. So we're delighted to welcome Dr. Mark Cross. Big round of applause.
Hi everyone, thank you Tanya. And I was a bit anxious earlier to cue anxiety because I've just come off a webinar for out in Australia, which was looking at the LGBTIQ+IAP community and their response to COVID. And I'd like to acknowledge, first of all, the Aboriginal elders and the custodians of this land on which we still reside, and are happy and amazing that we have this, but never ceded. So I acknowledge that. And I acknowledge Tanya for that lovely warm introduction, and Mind Medicine Australia for allowing me to present tonight. So it's on their platform, and what I want to do, and I think let's run through the format. We've got, and I'd like to try and stick to some sort of time. We've got about 50 minutes or so. So I'm going to talk to you about my book on anxiety that's just been released, and it's quite incredible. It's a compelling time for a book on anxiety to be released, and the book sales are doing well, so I'm pleased about that. And somebody asked me the other day about, did I know this was coming? I think it was a bit of tongue-in-cheek, but I went, well, us gays can cause avalanches, volcanoes to erupt and earthquakes, so perhaps it's in my remit to also cause a viral epidemic, so my book sales will increase. So yeah, I tended not to use that as as a serious question. I'm going to read a little bit in my book and linked to actually what Tanya was saying earlier. So I've been interested in this aspect of treatment in psychiatry, and as Tanya quite rightly says, a lot of my patients, the consumers of the service, the people who come and see me, take medications that sometimes do work, but sometimes you have to take a bit of time to get there, and there's side effects, and there are a whole lot of things that we need to look at with that. And I'm a very holistic person in my approach to mental health. And that includes lifestyle, diet, sleep, exercise, psychology, looking at what we put in our bodies, as well as pharmaceuticals and non-pharmaceuticals and other options. So hopefully we'll have a little bit more of a robust conversation afterwards. But I'm very excited tonight as well to bring you with Hugh Clark, who's the director and on this Zoom meeting as well, the film that we produced last year. So I have 32 narratives in my book, and that makes it so powerful. So it's not just me talking about myself. And what gives me a little bit of an edge at the moment is, well, I'm always on edge because I've got anxiety, but that I am a psychiatrist. I'm now openly gay. I turned 55 on Friday, so hey, there has to be some, improvement with age and wisdom. And I'm openly talking about my anxiety. It's taken me a long time to get here. It's a journey. And so I shared that in my book. And of course, my sexuality was a big imprinter of that anxiety from an early age. I knew I was different. But what's also fascinating, interesting, and amazing is that I have 32 people talk about their own anxiety and their stories in the book. 20 of them are sane peer ambassadors, and some of them will be on here watching. And they gave up their time, plus some of my friends and my patients, the people who come and see me for this film. And it's an incredibly raw and amazing film, and I'm so glad that you'll be able to see it. And then afterwards, and you'll see in the film, you'll pick up some themes similar to, linked to what Tanya said. And I think then we'll talk about it afterwards. Now, it's just a warning, it's a raw film. It's meant to make you feel anxious. So I'm giving you that heads up in terms of the intro and the music. And that was its intention. And it was shown to great acclaim at the big anxiety festival last year. And actually, that's the only place we've shown it. So this is the second place that we're showing this film now. So just in a couple of minutes, I think we should get to that because it's 25 minutes long, and then we can have Q&A afterwards.
Wonderful.
I'm just going to read you something quickly from my medication chapter. So what I've done in the book is looked at causes of mental illness and mental health issues, specifically anxiety. And in fact, anxiety is the most common condition in the world. It's the most common mental health condition in Australia, 14%. So we have mental health surveys every year. And in 2007, they looked at 5 major causes of anxiety. And of course, when they list, I always forget one, but OCD, generalized anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, agoraphobia, and panic disorder. So social anxiety and panic disorder, I told you. They didn't actually measure phobias. So this was if you had an anxiety condition in the last 12 months. So that was 14%. In America, 1 in 5 people identify as having an anxiety disorder. That's 20%. In the 2017-2018 survey, that figure was about 12% in Australia. But if you add in anxiety with depression and anxiety, it goes up to nearly 17%. And as I say, a whole lot of things weren't captured. Plus, people with a couple of more conditions aren't captured in those stats. So it's really vital that we get this right. I'm going to read one section from the book. And as I say, I talk about anxiety, the causes of anxiety, then treatments, but with my own story through and other people's stories, and then my sort of way forward for mental health reform. So it's in my medication chapter, controversial alternatives. There's continued resistance from members of my profession to the use of cannabis, psychedelics, and MDMA in general health. Practitioners may cite addiction and precipitation of mental disorders as evidence-based reasons against their use, as backed by government and pharma. This ignores the fact that these drugs are a valued choice by consumers and their families, who are right to demand a say in what substances they use for symptom relief. The ongoing emotional and at times irrational debates around clinical applications of the group of currently illicit drugs display a lack of empathy and objectivity. For so long, patronizing viewpoints have marred our profession. The focus on expensive chemical compounds produced by government-sanctioned pharma underscores the Australian National Mental Health Commission's view that consumers of mental health services and their carers are currently not given due voice. For example, cannabis is now legal in many countries, with applications in mental health with good results for anxiety, sleep, neurology, and chronic pain. MDMA too is being researched in trials for treating PTSD and alcohol dependence. For a PTSD treatment to work, the focus needs to be on the trauma, with graded exposure to the events in the mind. MDMA, under research conditions, has been used successfully in the USA for longer sessions. Arousal and fear are taken away by the effect of the drug, and the person can relate the trauma without becoming fearful and aroused. I'm keeping an eye on this research, so are my patients. In 2017, the FDA passed MDMA for breakthrough therapy designation for treatment of PTSD. Ketamine is currently in trials in Australia for treatment-resistant mood disorders. Now, that was before I met Tanya and we chatted about this, so we'll update those sort of figures later after the film. So I'm going to go to that now, and whilst you're watching, I'll answer some of the questions. Thanks, Ilan.
Thanks, Ilan.
So roughly 14% of Australians are diagnosed with an anxiety disorder.
Just losing focus, feeling very nauseous.
I've gone through the depression and mania a number of times.
I have clinically problematic perfectionism.
I think a good chunk of it was in my head.
On the one hand, I could be this outgoing person.
We all get anxious in some way.
So he was king head at a party.
My mind is so busy.
I felt everybody could do all the normal things that I couldn't.
When you have personal guarantees on long leases,
you stop sleeping.
I've been in hospital a number of times.
Other people get nervous about a big meeting at work.
Sometimes my choice, sometimes not.
But kind of grit their teeth and do it.
People with an anxiety disorder get that sort of fight or flight anxiety, all those anxiety symptoms.
But then there were days where I couldn't get out of bed and I couldn't function.
Irritable. So I was working as a medical scientist.
There was no mental illness in our family prior to that.
At its very worst, I was virtually agoraphobic.
something goes wrong and then you lose everything else you have.
And it's not one thought at a time, it's 10 layered upon each other.
I may not make it to that meeting.
Started having night terrors from around 4.
So he's had ongoing traumas throughout his life.
Hyperscanning.
And it just builds up bigger and bigger until it's this huge monster.
Night shift to morning shift to afternoon shift.
You get like sensory overload.
Hypervigilant.
Thoughts start racing.
But it does go down the fear path.
And it was very stressful.
I built myself up to that state.
Even the smallest like noise
that then caused a physical reaction in me.
Can make you snap.
Always on the lookout for danger.
Autoimmune condition from that constant stress.
For whatever reason, it started just getting into my head.
So if I've got a headache, having to work so fast.
Lasting that little bit longer, is it a brain tumour?
It's so debilitating.
Because I ground them down to the nerve being exposed.
I end up homeless on the street. It's crazy.
Vomiting at work.
Anxious, depressed, let's call it a dark place.
The mind never stops, unfortunately.
I don't want to be the life and soul of the party. I just want to be comfortable around people. And that's something that's just really hard for me. So I think I'm more accepting nowadays of the anxiety than what I used to be. It used to be like a curse, really.
There's elements of this illness that I can have some control over, and then there's elements that I don't have any control over. So I don't have any control over the genetics.
In my mind, I had this thing, oh, anxious people are frightened all the time and they don't go anywhere and they don't travel and they stay home, and that's not me. I live overseas and I do this and that. So I just never sort of connected the two together, and it was only, I guess, going into that therapeutic environment that I started to, through psychiatrists and psychologists, explore what was going on, and especially through the hospital, when I was in hospital, and realising that actually I ticked all these hallmarks for anxiety, and I thought, wow, we'll add that to the list.
My brother had bipolar, or back then it was called manic depressive, and he actually took his own life. And he was full high and low, and I experienced and saw the highs, and, you know, of course, he was in hospital a lot during the lows. So, yeah, and is that maybe a bit more empathetic? I think so.
My parents weren't good at communicating their own emotions, and so I didn't learn how to do that. Mum made it very clear that my success or otherwise was a reflection on her.
I could never stand up in front of a class. I could never hold a conversation with people or truly have eye contact with someone for a long time without feeling terribly anxious. Yet everyone perceived me as this person that could handle anything and was, you know, perfect. And a good friend of mine would say, "You're just Mr. Perfect, the boss loves you, your wife's beautiful, look at you coming in your suit," and he would wind me up constantly about it. And one day I just told him, I said, "Look, I'm going to see a doctor about this," and he was, you know, dumbfounded.
Girls are really mean. They get really manipulative, they can get under your skin, if they want to ruin you, they can. I barely went to school. In high school, being there was exhausting. And you think there's nothing wrong, but then one day it just hits you. And you start seeing yourself differently.
I had to accept first and foremost that my brain works differently to other people's. As much as it's hard for other people to accept, it was hardest for me.
Death can be the theme for 2 weeks non-stop. Taking people along to view the bodies, listening to their anguish, to their grief. I had a messiah complex. I was going to save the world. And that's where I think I got off track.
You can't share of your own inner self as a doctor because it was felt that that would shift your perspective and impact negatively on the person that you're seeing. Whilst I was studying, homosexuality was a criminal offence in South Africa and a mental and medical illness. So that's been so intermingled with me, hiding and trying to then be this proper doctor that can't accept weakness, but also can't be gay.
And so I called him the next day and he said, "You're too old to be pregnant. You're just going through menopause." It hit me like a ton of bricks. I was gutted. I hadn't had kids. Always that little, you know, maybe by some miracle one day I might. So it was such a final thing. It's a physical thing that will affect your mental state for sure. But nobody told me this. No one's told me this.
For people to see that you can live with a severe mental illness and there's a real person underneath that.
For me to say to someone that I have anxiety and that's why I can't go to this restaurant with you tonight, I feel like that's a weakness. Whereas for some reason I feel bipolar disorder is this illness that's not my control. I've got it, but it's not my fault. Whereas anxiety, if I was stronger or braver or could get it together better, then it wouldn't be that way.
If you're diabetic, you take insulin. I have anxiety, I take Valium.
It's even more stigma to having anxiety as a doctor as a weakness than being gay.
mental illness is a very real phenomena, just as a broken leg is a very real phenomena.
And I'm only hearing it now when I start sharing my story, that other women are very forthcoming in sharing, oh God, yeah, tell me about it. I've had that, I'd say 100 times in the last 6 months from other women, but it's not out there. It's not spoken about freely, and it should be.
It's about dealing with self-stigma first. That is the worst kind of stigma. It's the worst kind of stigma. And it sits with you and erodes you and impacts your interaction with others.
So we organised meet-up barbecues for people to come together, men predominantly, to encourage connection. A lot of that bravado that may have caused some stigma around it definitely fell away.
You can no more think your way out of pathological anxiety or depression than you can think your way out of diabetes.
Not liking yourself or hating yourself is not a very nice position to be in.
That they're just seen by people as burdens and too hard and too complicated, and they're just seen as the labels. That they want to have an ordinary life, just like everyone. They want to be able to access the community. They want to be able to have friends. They want to find something meaningful to do.
It was pretty scary, to the point where I even thought once or twice as I lived on Bondi Beach, I thought if I didn't have a wife and kids, I might even be tempted to go for a swim and just keep swimming, which, I didn't get deep into those thoughts, but it did cross my mind once or twice.
There's definitely a mourning that goes on for the life that I thought I would have. The form of depression that I had was drug resistant, and I took that as a death sentence. My grand plan of finding the magic pill that I had been in search of for many years was down the drain, and nothing was ever going to be. Therefore, of course, the next logical assumption is that, life is over. And lying in bed and just making plans, and my partner walked in and she said to me, "Don't give up." They're only 3 words, but they were pretty powerful. I promised her I wouldn't give up in that moment, and in that moment I made the call to make this life as amazing as it could possibly be, or at least try and find a way of getting out of hell.
If I'd not done that, it could have only taken another couple of sort of events or things to happen to spiral that would have, I could have easily ended my life, easily.
And it just got so much that I started to think of a way out. Like, there was something sweet and peaceful about the thought of death. It wasn't so much wanting to die as wanting a break, just wanting it to stop.
Veterinary practice, that tends to be a fairly high-functioning, stressful job, and I've always gotten back to that, but it does take some time.
For me, when I could start to switch it away from all the things that I couldn't have because of this, and to all the things that I did and could have. It was a huge turning point.
But I had to then go, come on, you have to look at yourself. I was having issues and my relationship was suffering and my other relationships were suffering.
Some of the support workers have been taking photos and selfies with them and they send them to us. And I said, that's the first time I've seen one of my brothers smile for I can't remember how long. Like, it's just so amazing that we're seeing those improvements already. It's just amazing and life-changing, you know, for the whole family.
It was about 2 months a year that I was spending in hospital. Tried a lot of different medications and I had ECT. And when I started advocacy work, I saw maybe I couldn't change the things I went through and I couldn't take that 5 years back that I lost out of my life, but I could stop it happening to someone else.
Certainly the ability to talk to, I guess, a professional, I think that was absolutely helpful.
I could do better. I could do ultra marathons if I was really focused and if I really tried hard. And that is really tiring to live like that. Like, it's really exhausting. This year is probably the best, most stable year for me since being diagnosed, which is great. I'm back at work and my medication is kind of sorted out and everything. I've done a lot of therapy and a lot of work, especially through outpatients in the hospital, and that's helped a lot.
Recovery for me is rediscovering or recovering that dignity and being able to act out of that dignity as a person.
Music helps me a lot. It's just something about it that calms me down.
The only way out is through is, yes, I have to push myself. I have to go into these situations. I have to go into the supermarket. It's like chipping away at a brick wall, and that's what it's been like for a lot of years, is chipping away at that cement in between the bricks and slowly bringing that wall down. It's not completely gone, but it's at a manageable level. I'm happier now than I've ever been in years. I'm doing things that I never thought possible. So, you know, I'm on a good roll at the moment.
So I have these vulnerabilities, these differences to other people, but I can find a way around to still function and still live a meaningful life just by making reasonable adjustments.
I may never have gone to see a psychologist and I would still be stuck in some very unhelpful ways of thinking.
So it makes me more authentic when I meet people in a work scenario, personal, whatever it might be. It's done away with a lot of just pretending and putting on a mask, basically.
They show me where I'm not integrated.
It's kind of opened my mind up to more possibilities. I care a lot more about other people when I want to help them more.
When you can be grateful for what you've got because you know what the alternative is, it makes everything an opportunity.
I'd like to have been less self-critical, so definitely say that to my younger self. Just live more and don't care about what people think all the time.
I would hope that this would sink in, but I would want to say that you're okay as you, like, you're enough. You don't have to be not you to fit in or have people love you or anything like that, because you're enough the way you are.
Our relationship has grown, and I love my wife more than I think I did when we first got married.
The best thing for me is listening to people with lived experience and hearing their stories of recovery and hearing about strategies that they've used to help them improve their lives, because that gives me hope for my brothers and for our family that that is achievable. You can see small little glimmers of hope and glimmers of improvement.
I'm certainly more aware now of that things like meditation and proper breathing and stillness and self-reflection are all more important than they were to be 10 years ago.
One of my symptoms told me. They told me to run away, run to the hills.
Much more self-reflective after what I've been through. I try and be compassionate and say, thank you, anxiety. I'm listening. This is really important for me. Thanks for reminding me of that. But I'm going to go do it anyway, you know, because it is important to me, no matter how much you're making me scared.
Now in my older years, I've got this great wealth, I guess, of experience, you know, 50-odd years of experience, that maybe somehow I can help other people, and particularly help the professionals, the clinicians, of what it's really like for someone to have complex mental health issues for that amount of time. And I'm still here. I'm still here.
I'm a good doctor. I will say that without sounding arrogant. I'm a good doctor because of this stuff. My own stuff has helped me be empathic and, I think, a caring person. Having someone come to me with an issue or problem or something that they want to resolve and get to the point where they are doing so, I think that's incredible, being part of someone's journey like that. And if sharing my own story helps in that journey, I think that's useful.
When you're in hospital, everyone makes decisions for you. And for so long, I didn't get a say. My voice was really silent. And even before then, when I was trying to protect my parents and not come out. Through this advocacy journey, I've really been fighting for better systems for people to give feedback to mental health services. And if that's truly my value, that everyone deserves to have a voice, then I have to start with my own voice and make sure that gets heard.
My name is Anita Link, and this is me.
My name is Keris Lane. This is me.
I'm Kelly Clark, and this is me.
My name is Laura Hughes, and this is me.
My name is Lisa Naftali, and this is me.
My name is Mark Cross. This is me.
My name is Sarah Sutton. This is me.
My name is Steve Davis. This is me.
My name is Sue DeLead, and this is me.
My name is Terry Cornick. This is me.
My name is Sylvia Magnay, and this is me.
My name is Tony DeLead, and this is me.
My name is Tanya Blazevich, and this is me.
Okay. So we're back now. So I can't hear you, Tanya. So thanks for that. And everyone, I try to get to your comments after the film. It is really raw and powerful, but as I say, that's for lived experience and inspirational. And we haven't quite worked out what we're doing with it yet. So a couple of you have mentioned, you know, peer instruction, lived. I use it in my training sessions or my education sessions for the consumers at where I work, and various things like that. And yes, the music, I said, is quite intense, and it was meant to be, because it was interesting in my last webinar, one woman said in this time, she's feeling a bit guilty because others are experiencing what she does on a daily basis with mental illness. And I said, no need to feel guilty. If that's what it takes to get the message out there, because we are feeling more anxious in this time of Corona, I'm hoping in a positive way that after this, and we speak more and we look at discrimination and stigma, after this time, we cannot go back to business as usual. Business as usual is not good for the majority. And actually, with people now experiencing more mental illness, they will understand, or mental health issues, they will understand what people with mental health issues have been having to deal with all their lives. So I'll leave it there in terms of the film. And I've got 6 minutes. So I'm going to open it up to Tanya or questions, you know, about you know, what we talked about earlier, and or anything really.
No, thank you, Mark. Firstly, it's a very moving and powerful film to see all that lived experience. Interesting seeing Tony and Sue to lead there as well, who I think founded Gwingana, the health retreat.
Yes, that's it. They're good friends of mine. And that Tony's never talked about this to anyone. So a lot of people, you know, in the book, friends of mine said, yeah, okay, let's do it. If you're going to talk about your own stuff, we'll talk about ours too. It's very powerful.
Well, so it's so good to be vulnerable, as Brene Brown always says in her books as well. Ilan, what we might do, Mark, is just show a couple of the last slides, and then we will go into some questions. So I'll just show a couple more slides, because a lot of people have asked how they can be involved and so on. And we're aware that a lot of people haven't been on a Mind Medicine Australia webinar. So Ilan, would you mind just putting on the last couple of slides? And then Mark, I'm going to come back to you in a moment.
Sure.
So if we take that full screen. So this is really interesting, because Tim Ferriss actually is one of these people who has certainly spoken very openly about his anxiety and his depression, and has been really very supportive of the psychedelic medicine movement. And he has said, I view the next 5 years as an absolutely golden window. There's an opportunity to use relatively small amounts of money to have billions of dollars of impact in terms of helping people heal mental illness and to affect millions of lives. There just aren't that many opportunities that are so dramatically obvious. If you want to bend the arc of history, I think this is one of the best opportunities you will ever have. And if we go to the next slide, Ilan, the next slide. He's talking about psychedelic therapy there. Thank you. And these are some of the ways that you can actually help Mark and all of the team at Mind Medicine Australia to amplify the very important conversation we need to have about new treatments to help heal and so that people can actually live their best lives. So talking about these medicines, volunteering, so we have lots of wonderful volunteers, many of whom are on this call. We have a wonderful Learn section on our website. Of course, talking to your doctors and psychiatrists and other medical professions so that they get educated about these medicines and how safe they are. Very important. We're starting a group of psychiatrists. And so if you've got a psychiatrist and they're interested in being part of that, we'll work with them as well. Fundraising and donating is critical because Peter, my husband Peter, and I are philanthropists and social entrepreneurs, and whilst we're very generous, we can't do this completely alone, and we rely on the generosity of both small and larger donors and supporters. You can follow us on social media and share our posts and talk to your local MPs and attend our summit and other educational events. We'll be showing an incredible film called Trip of Compassion over the coming weeks as well, which is about post-traumatic stress disorder and the incredible treatment using MDMA-assisted therapy in an Israeli hospital. Ilan, if you go to the next slide, please. Our summit in November, which we hope will be able to go ahead, is preceded by a 2-day introductory workshop for therapists and other interested health professionals and members of the public on psychedelic therapies, and then a 2-day summit, and the next slide, please, of incredible speakers, this incredible lineup that we have from overseas and Australia, psychiatrists and researchers from around the world. And I think, is that it, Ilan? And we have some more webinars. So next week, we have Psychiatry and Psychedelics, May the 20th. On June the 3rd, we have a webinar on sexual abuse and how these medicines can help heal sexual abuse. And then we'll have Trip of Compassion in June, and more watch this space because we've got lots more wonderful webinars coming up. So now I think what we're going to do is open up, not all the mics, but if you've got a question, I think you can do what's called wave your hand or put your hand up, and we will try and respond to as many questions in the next 10 or so minutes as possible. Here we go. Any questions there? Ilan, can you see people waving their hands?
So there's one, Sean has waved his hand.
Sean? And also, Ilan, you had a pre-registered question as well. So do you want to read the pre-registered question first?
Okay, let me just bring that up.
And we might go with Sean first. So Sean, are you there? Can you unmute Sean's mic, please, Ilan?
Sean can unmute himself now, but I can do it.
Okay, no, that's fantastic. Sean, we'd love to hear from you.
Sean, can you please speak?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can.
We can now, yes, thank you.
Sorry.
And what's your question? No, he's muted again, unfortunately, Ilan.
Sean?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go for it.
Oh, I didn't really have a question. I was just very obviously wanted to give a message to my cousin from South Africa. I've lived with anxiety for a long time as well, and just wanted to say how very proud I am of him. And obviously, yeah, gone through my own challenges, and I'm very proud of him.
Thanks, Kaz.
I think we're all very proud of him too.
Thank you. But again, that shows, you know, it runs in our family. Anxiety looms large, and I did, you know, send the book to my mother and grandmother. Now I can't think of the words. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's all good. Ilan will read the question that was pre-submitted from someone on this call. Ilan, would you like to just read the question?
Yes. So the question says, I am interested to hear about the role of psychosocial rehabilitation for those who have become islands as a result of the longer term effects of their mental condition. I understand the concept of integration and also of the concept that the paradigm shift is so big with controlled drugs under strict protocols can have some magical and spontaneous results. I am referring to habits which have been, I am referring to habits which have been formed whilst socially and activity of daily living hibernation, which can be prevalent with some sort of mental condition. Thank you.
I suppose I'll answer in a couple of ways. One is psychosocial determination and management is so crucial in psychiatry and mental health issues generally. In 2015, there was a study on loneliness in New Zealand, and big surprise, it causes mental health issues and it also makes them worse. Loneliness is the killer, and we have to be very careful not to connections are so important. So not to forget, especially in this time, and it brings me to the time of Corona, right? It's important to connect. I don't care how you do it. Connect with your neighbors, knock on your elderly neighbors' doors, as we have been doing in the last month or two. Pick up the phone, and if you've got no one to call Lifeline, Beyond Blue, Sane forums, there are a whole lot of people that you can make contact with. And psychosocial rehabilitation looks at the whole self. So it's not just especially in medicine, not just about taking a pill. It's looking at what causes and what we can change to uncause something like anxiety. And that is inequality, loneliness, not being connected, as I said earlier. If you look at equality in our society, that's one of the main determinants of somebody's mental health issues. And as a gay person, I was immensely proud of Australia as a country voting for marriage equality. And I know that has saved lives and has improved things. So not quite sure exactly what the last part of the question was alluding to, but perhaps it was also giving these groundbreaking treatments a chance and then going, okay, if you have trauma, because trauma underpins everything, and to build up resilience and also treatment, then psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy is certainly something that's worth looking at.
Totally. And if you're feeling lonely out there, I will mention that we have another program called With One Voice, which is a social inclusion choir program where a lot of lonely and anxious people come to connect with others and get that real sense of social connection. We are social animals, and to be locked down is not natural for anyone. And so this particular time of lockdown is particularly stressful. Isn't that right, Mark?
It is stressful. And, it's interesting, and I mentioned earlier on the last webinar, but I'll do so here. People say, okay, what practical tips do I give people? And it is about staying connected. We all have a community. And look at this, earlier there were 170 something people on here. People I know, my family, thanks Kaz, and friends from South Africa, from abroad, from here, people we don't even know. And we're speaking to each other and we're connecting. This is a way of connecting. And we all have communities. We have family, we have friends, we have neighbors, we have work colleagues, we have my board and staff at SANE, for instance, with me. I'm part of Rainbow Families community, and some of you are on here. That's for LGBTIQ parents and those who want to be parents. We in Australia have that mateship that we should really, really make sure that we actually tap into and share memes. I've been sharing memes with everybody, left, right, and centre in the last couple of months. Not obviously laughing at people, apart from Prince Charles, but, sharing funny things makes us laugh. And when we laugh, and I've got a sense of humor and I use it, when we laugh, we breathe better and we improve our anxiety. And I'm a big breath holder. My anxiety is I sort of withdraw. I always look great, but inside I'm a churning jelly mess. And my breathing, I've really got to concentrate on the breathing, and that's really useful. And keeping to those structures and routines and walking. Oh my God, people, I said to a couple of groups this week, and I was there in the 70s, I've not seen so many people walking their dogs and their kids since the 1970s. It's fabulous. It's fabulous. People are going out and chatting, and social media is being kinder. And, you know, just as we're ending, and I want to say this, and I think it's really important, and I believe this with my soul. Cinderella, I love Cinderella. She's a great female philosopher, and people will look at me and go, well, what do you mean? Well, if you've seen the 2015 version, we haven't, please do. It's the British version with Ella James as Cinderella and our own Kate Blanchett as the wicked stepmother in haute couture to the max, and Richard Maddox in tights. And, you know, there's something for everyone. And she goes out and she's riding her horse, one of the pieces, and she meets the prince in the forest, who asks her, and she realizes her life is now just dreadful. Her father's died, and her stepmother's a horrible, evil cow. And she goes, you know, they treat me as best they can. And we're talking about resilience, and that's a big theme in all of this. What makes us resilient? Well, family and support certainly do improve that. And, you know, the connectedness. And her take-home message, have courage and be kind. And be kind to yourself. I mean, I think that's really important.
Absolutely. There's another question here that I have on the chat feed, Mark, which is, do you have any thoughts on the likelihood that rates of emerging OCD and eating disorders in younger children and teenagers may particularly develop as a result of corona?
I'm not so sure. I certainly would acknowledge, and this is being the case, that there's a rise in mental health issues linked to corona, and it's obvious, you know, it's obvious, oh my God, I can hardly speak now, sorry, it's, you know, its effects, and we've got to watch out for that. And Ian Hickey, the Brain Black Dog Institute and recent research modeling is saying that we're going to have increased suicides as a result of this. In terms of eating disorders, I mean, I think comfort eating, when we're in situations where we can't control or we don't feel in control, then we can control certain things. And I suppose eating is one of those. But I think binge eating is a big problem. And that certainly is on the increase.
Yeah. So we might have time, Mark, are you right if we answer maybe 2 more questions?
I'm fine. So yeah, apart from, again, sorry, that's quite an emotional, it's been quite an emotional thing for me tonight, and we've had a wonderful discussion, and a whole lot's happened in this. This has been one of the fullest webinars I've been involved in. It's been amazing. Thanks, Tanya. But yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you. Is anyone else waving their hand?
I think Thomas from London wants to say something. He's...
Yep.
Yeah.
Thomas?
Hi, can you hear me, Mark?
Yeah.
Excellent. Really good to talk to you. And thank you so much for showing that video. I've been looking forward to watching that for quite a while, actually. So it was really good, really useful. You half sort of answered my question a little bit earlier on, but one of the things we've been talking about here, quite a few of us, is about resilience. And it's about, you know, I don't think enough's done really to try and educate people about the things that they can do to help themselves. And you mentioned that when you were talking about Cinderella and the resilience and about the way we think about things and about the way we cope. One of the big problems that I've found as well is when we're trying to get people to join social groups, say Facebook, whatever it would be, to help, you know, teams, for instance, to join in. They do that, but there's so much opportunity to go the other way and focus on the negative. So things like Twitter, for instance, I just see so much venom and negativity and confusion and panic. What can we do to try and persuade people not to interact with those sort of mediums, really, to the extent that they do?
And the news.
Yeah, the news is just as bad. So, yeah, you know, it's a lot of panic. I try and direct people to government, you know, factual and government websites and stuff like that, and just concentrate on what we know, not on the presumptions. And what can we do more to really get that into people's minds?
And thanks, Thomas, if you don't mind. So Thomas is a LinkedIn friend of mine, and he's an ex-army guy with PTSD. Yeah. Thanks for asking that and being open.
Thank you, Mark.
That's so important. So I, you know, I don't like, you probably worked out by now, I don't like being prescriptive, right? So I try and follow my own advice. And the one thing I always say, I give advice and here's the pure version here, and here's the practical version here. So what I say, generally get into a good sleep pattern, no screens, at least an hour before bed, no food, 3 to 4 hours before bed, and get into a nice, relaxed sleep pattern. And when I'm lying in bed next to John, on my phone is going, follow your own advice. Get off your phone. So hey, we all have to aim for that. And I must say, in middle of March, just before, when things were just getting, you know, ropey, and all of us were going, WTF is happening. I had to take 2 weeks out. I just had to go home. I said to everyone, I'm just phoning people. I'm here, but I need some space. And it's incredibly important to acknowledge that and go, hey, I need to look after myself. Sorry, I'm jiggling here. I need to look after myself. We all have to look after ourselves before we can give advice and be of use to other people. So that self-kindness and self-stigma that we talked about earlier, we really have to look at that. But just in direct answer to your question, I say to people, get up. We do need to follow the news in the morning. We need to find out what's going on. A bit of a comedy show because our respective prime ministers keep on giving us mixed messages and none of us actually know what. So that gives us a good coffee chat with all our friends for at least 3 hours afterwards, trying to translate what actually has been told us. And we've got premieres and everything as well. So that's quite fun. And then don't look at the news again for the day. That is absolutely important. And coming back to your social media question, though, I don't know, I find, again, I do tell people, do not engage. Don't engage with the trolls. Just send them love hearts and go, you know, hello, I'm going to block you now, whatever. Because actually, social media, if we look at social media, look at what we're doing now. We went on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, people are here from all over the place, and we all connected by this wonderful thing called the web. And we're having meetings with everyone from other countries attending. So I think that's really positive. We need to formulate, I think, I don't know, tutorials or something to help people navigate it properly, because I think it's a wonderful way to stay connected. So that's the positive of that.
Mark,
Yeah, I agree.
just another, oh, thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, no, thank you, Mark.
No, it's good. Just another question here. One of the challenges with the study on psilocybin at Imperial College has been asking clients, because you understand that clients have to go off their antidepressants for the psilocybin to work, the psilocybin treatments. And one of the questions here says, what do you recommend for withdrawing clients from antidepressants so they can actually try treatments that might actually have a chance of getting them well? Can you hear me?
Mark just dropped out.
Mark dropped out. Ilan, could you try and get Mark back, please? By the way, on our website, there's a download section with a whole lot of interesting and important information, and it talks about how many weeks before a psychedelic-assisted therapy session you need to go off an antidepressant. By the way, we're not recommending that people have unregulated or unsupervised psychedelic therapy sessions. I would like to make that point. But if you're in a medical trial or something similar, you'll be guided through that process. Hopefully we can get Mark back on there.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. You look like you fell off your couch or something. You were on the Johnny Carson show and suddenly the red chair went backwards or something.
You see, people, I must say, you know, as someone with anxiety, I think somebody said to me, but you never look anxious. You know, my computer's just overheated and just stopped working. So I went, oh God, my poor cat jumped up off my lap. And there you go. So this is what we deal with, right? So we're coming back to, so you know what I find, never mind about stopping antidepressants for this. People stop antidepressants abruptly for many reasons, including getting gut surgery. So it's real cowboy sort of stuff, and they don't get told properly how to come off antidepressants, which can cause horrible withdrawals. But there are ways of doing it, and I think it's very useful if you are under a clinician's guidance there are ways you can do it fairly quickly. And then, of course, starting the therapy, because the whole point of the therapy is to be more helpful. So I always help people, and I haven't done this specifically for this, but the way I do it would be coming off of a couple of weeks with benzodiazepines. And I use benzodiazepines, something like Valium or something short term to help with those horrible withdrawals, and then taper them and start. That's the way I would certainly look at it.
Mm-hmm. So, ladies and gentlemen, there's a nice, really nice one there. Robert Gordon, Ubuntu in Africa, says, "I am because we are." Wonderful psychiatrist Robert Gordon on this call just said that as a nice. I think that's a nice way actually to finish. I am because we are one, and let's see if we can continue to create this wonderful movement together. And we certainly welcome you to our upcoming webinars. And I want to thank you, Mark, for your generosity in sharing your wisdom, your love, your warm heart with everyone tonight. It really is an inspiration for everyone involved. So thank you. And claps for everyone.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. That was lovely. And, you know, it's wonderful to see so many friends and family, and I love you, and for the support. And thanks, Tanya. It was a great night.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Market, and everyone. Thank you. And we'll see you again soon, and we'll send you some links to connect further. Thank you all.